The autopsy report had my name on it, not someone with the same initials, not someone who lived on my street, not a distant relative with a shared surname. My full name, my date of birth, my national ID number, typed neatly across the top of a document the coroner emailed to me by mistake. I was standing at my kitchen counter when I opened it, the same counter where I kept leftover curry from the night before, my abandoned cup of tea, and a stack of unopened bills. For a second, my brain didn't know what to do with what I was seeing. It felt like looking at a photo where you don't recognize your own face, except this one listed a cause of death. Sudden cardiac arrest. Time of death, 23:41. I checked the time on my phone, 21:12, 2 hours before I was meant to die, according to a document from a hospital I'd never visited. At first, I thought it had to be a phishing scam, some grotesque attempt to make me click a link. But the email address was official. The phone number in the signature matched St. Joseph's coroner's office, and the attached PDF wasn't asking me for anything. It was just telling me I was dead. Halfway down the page, a small black and white photo was clipped into the report. Grainy, taken under harsh lights. A man lying on a steel table. A sheet covered the lower half of his body. The upper half showed a torso already opened with a Y incision, no face in view. No way to identify him, except the label tied around the wrist. Cole, Daniel, 34. My name, my age. I felt the cold of the kitchen tiles climb through my feet, up my legs, settling somewhere beneath my ribs. Before I could process any of it, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in the pit of my stomach told me I'd regret it if I didn't. Hello? A woman's voice, calm but breathless, like she'd been walking fast. Mr. Cole, this is Dr. Harper from the coroner's office. Please don't panic. We had a technical issue with the file, and it seems you received something meant for internal review. My throat felt tight. Internal review of what? She hesitated. I could hear papers shifting in the background. The deceased was incorrectly registered under your identity, she said. We need you to come in tomorrow morning so we can verify your details and correct the record. And if I don't, it came out sharper than I meant. Then certain systems may process you as deceased, she replied, which would create complications. Complications. Banking, healthcare access, employment, travel, anything that relies on identity verification. Her voice softened. It is essential we put the record straight. I stared at the autopsy photo still glowing on my laptop screen. Who is he? I asked. We aren't sure yet. That's why we need to confirm that you are you. Another pause. The report lists a time of death later tonight. Clearly an error in documentation or system timestamps, but it says 23:41. I finished for her. Yes. And it's 21:12. Yes, she said again, more softly. The kitchen lights flickered once. A soft hum in the wall went silent. The refrigerator, or maybe the boiler. Something shifted in the house, a subtle drop in sound I wouldn't have noticed any other night. Mr. Cole, she said, are you feeling well? Fine, I lied, gripping the counter with a hand that wasn't steady. I'm fine. Good. Try to get some rest. We'll resolve everything in the morning. She hung up before I could reply. My laptop screen dimmed slightly, the way it does before it goes to sleep. The photo blurred for a moment. When it sharpened again, I could have sworn the angle looked different, like the body had shifted a few millimeters, like the wrist tag was angled a little more toward the camera. I touched the trackpad. The cursor didn't move. Every clock in the kitchen showed a different time now. The oven said 21:08. The microwave said 21:016. My phone said 21:14. And the digital wall clock above the table, the one that had kept perfect time since the day I bought it, said 23:41, glowing steadily in red numbers. The exact moment the report claimed I died. I stood there, cold spreading through me, listening to the silence of my own house. Then the wall clock blinked once and reset itself to 00:00. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of that autopsy report floated up. My name typed above a body that wasn't mine, the timestamp looming like an appointment I hadn't agreed to. The clocks around my house kept doing small, wrong things, freezing, jumping, flickering, never loudly, never enough to point at, just enough to feel noticed. By morning, I felt hollow. I showered, dressed, and left the house earlier than I needed to. The air outside was cold in a way that made my lungs sting. Nothing unusual happened on the way into town, but I couldn't shake the sense of being followed. Not by a person, by a moment. A point in time that was still waiting for me to meet it. St. Joseph's looked even uglier in daylight. A brick box squatting against a gray sky. I checked in, followed the signs, and took the lift down to the basement. The air grew colder as the doors opened. Colder than a building had any right to be. A woman stepped out of an office as I approached. Same voice from last night. "Mr. Cole?" "Yes, I'm Dr. Harper." She offered her hand. "Thank you for coming in." Her hand was cool, not freezing, just too cool. She led me into a small office where a file already sat open on the desk. A wall clock ticked loudly above us. The second hand hovered at the top of the dial like it wasn't sure whether to move. "This is the erroneous report," she said, turning the file toward me. "I want to show you exactly what the system generated." Seeing my name at the top of a death certificate did something to my stomach. A small, dropping sensation, like stepping off a curb you didn't see. Cole, Daniel, male, 34, my birthday, my address, my GP, everything matched, too cleanly. "Cause of death, sudden cardiac arrest," she read softly. "Pronounced at 23:41. "I was alive at 23:41, I said. "That's why we're correcting it." Her tone stayed clinical, but her eyes flicked to mine like she wasn't entirely committed to her own explanation. "Paramedics were dispatched to your address last night," she continued. "A neighbor reported seeing you through the window, unresponsive. They attempted to gain entry." "No," I said. "Nobody forced my door. I didn't hear anything." She tapped a page. "There are tool marks photographed. Something happened at that door." "I was home," I insisted. "I was standing in my kitchen. Nobody came in." She didn't argue. That unnerved me more than if she had. My eyes dropped to a line at the bottom of the page I hadn't noticed before. "Subject faintly responsive at initial contact. Eye movement observed. No verbal output." "What does that mean?" I asked. "Sometimes bodies exhibit reflexes," she said carefully. "Nerve discharges. It's not uncommon." "It says responsive," I said, "not reflexive." She closed the file gently, like she was trying not to disturb something inside it. "I need you to confirm two things," she said. "Your identity, and whether the deceased resembles you." The words made the room tilt slightly. "You want me to look at him?" "Yes. And if he does look like me, then the error is more complicated." Something cold pressed behind my sternum. She stood. I followed, though every step felt like pushing through thicker air. The viewing room was small, sterile, and colder than the hall. A wide window filled most of one wall, a heavy blind drawn behind it. Beneath the glass was a narrow bench. Nothing else. Harper keyed in a code. The blind rose slowly. The room on the other side was lit by harsh white strips. Condensation fogged the tiled floor. A metal trolley stood in the center. A body lay on it, covered to the collarbone by a sheet. Face exposed, eyes closed, skin pale. My face. I stepped closer to the glass without meaning to. He looked like me in every way that mattered. Same jawline, same brow, same faint scar at the eyebrow from when I fell off my bike at 10. Even the slight downturn of the mouth matched. "It can't be," I whispered. "No one expects this," she said quietly. The clock above the window read 9 o'clock. The second hand trembled, then began to tick, but backward. Harper noticed. She pressed her lips together, just for a moment. "Old wiring down here," she murmured. I didn't believe that. Not after everything else. "How can he look exactly like me?" I asked. "There are possibilities," she said. "None of them likely. But the first step is confirmation." "He has my scar," I said. "Yes." "That doesn't make sense." "No," she agreed. The backward ticking grew louder in my ears, like it was syncing with something inside me. I watched myself die, I said before I even understood the words. You didn't, she said firmly, but something in her face flickered, a tiny uncertainty she couldn't hide. Time of death was logged at 23:41, I said. My clocks jumped, my lights flickered. Something happened. Mr. Cole, she said softly, we need to fix the record. If your identity stays marked as deceased, every system connected to the hospital will treat you as an error. Your bank, your employer, government databases, you won't be able to function. And if he's not an error? I asked. She didn't answer. The second hand on the backward clock stuttered, paused, then began reversing faster, each tick a small jolt that tightened something behind my ribs. On the other side of the glass, the body's chest rose slightly. Not a breath, not movement, just pressure, like the table shifted under weight. I stepped back. Harper's eyes snapped to the body, then to me. Did you see that? I whispered. She didn't blink. Sometimes refrigeration causes. Don't, I said. Please don't. The clock struck 8:59 in reverse. The lights flickered, and the body on the trolley opened its eyes. His eyes were open, not flashing open like in a movie, not spasming, just open in the way a person slowly wakes into a room they already expected to be in. For a moment, I felt my body forget how to breathe. Something deep inside me, not instinct, not fear, something older, froze so completely that even my heartbeat seemed to hesitate. Behind me, Dr. Harper whispered, "Stay where you are." Her voice wasn't calm anymore. It wasn't controlled or clinical. It was thin, tight, stretched like a wire pulled harder than it could bear. She sounded like someone who had just seen something she'd trained her entire career to believe was impossible. But the impossible kept looking at me, the other me. His eyes were half open, pupils dark, the lids heavy as if waking took effort. The lighting made them look just slightly wrong, not milky, not dead, just slow. Slow in a way that didn't belong in this world. The fluorescent light above him buzzed once. The backward clock above the glass clicked, paused, then slid back another second. Tick, tick. Backward ticks falling like drops of water in a cave. I couldn't move. It felt like if I breathed too loudly or stepped too close, the thin line between us might snap and whatever held him in place would spill into the room. "Mr. Cole," Harper said, "do not go closer." But she was looking not at me, at him, at the body that wasn't a body anymore. "Tell me you saw that," I whispered. She didn't answer. Her silence told me more than any reassurance could. The body's gaze shifted a little more, dragging across the glass like it was following the warmth behind my breath. And for the first time, I noticed something horrifyingly subtle. He wasn't looking at my reflection. He was looking at me, as if the glass wasn't there at all. A soft tapping sound echoed faintly. Tap, tap, tap. A slow, exploratory rhythm. His fingers had moved again. They curled against the trolley's edge, tightening as if testing the strength of his grip. The plastic wrist tag, my name printed on it, brushed against the metal. The tag swung slightly as if stirred by breath, except the air in that room was still and cold and controlled. Harper exhaled shakily. It was the first real sign she wasn't in control anymore. Her hand hovered near the emergency call button again, but she didn't press it. There was no protocol for this. Pressing anything would mean admitting the world she believed in no longer worked. "What is happening?" I whispered. She swallowed hard. "Something has gone wrong with the record." "The record?" I turned on her. "That's all you're thinking about? Look at him." "I am," she whispered. But she wasn't looking at the living version. She was watching the way the frost had started forming inside the glass again. This time it spread faster. Thin branches of ice crawled upward in delicate fractal veins. They didn't look natural, not like cold forming against a warm surface, but like something growing intentionally, reaching for structure, making patterns that felt almost mathematical. The frost webbed upward until it reached the center of the window, but it avoided two perfect circles, aligning precisely with the other me's eyes. Two clear oval windows, 2 sight lines, 2 holes punched in the frost just so he could watch me. A feeling hit me then, a deep, instinctive, marrow-level feeling. I wasn't supposed to exist here. Not like this. Not while he did. 2 versions of one identity were not meant to overlap in the same place. And something old, quiet, exact, was trying to correct it. "Mr. Cole," Harper's voice lowered to a whisper. "Please, step back." But her words sounded far away, muffled under the sound of my own pulse, which had begun beating in a slow, heavy rhythm that didn't feel like panic. It felt like sinking. The other me blinked again, and this time his lips parted, just barely. Not enough to speak, just enough to release a thin, cold exhale that fogged the air above him. The fog rose and hung there, refusing to disperse. Harper's composure snapped. She grabbed the file from the desk and shoved the signature page toward me, her hands trembling. "Sign it," she said. "Please. Whatever this is, it only continues because the system isn't closed. The contradiction is keeping him tethered somewhere between states." "You think this is a paperwork error?" My voice cracked. "Do you really believe a signature is going to fix this?" Her eyes met mine, frightened, honest, breaking. "It has before." "What do you mean before?" But she shook her head like she wished she hadn't said it. Her fear deepened, not because she'd lied, but because she'd told the truth. I stared at the line waiting for my signature. My name printed under "deceased," the neat blank space beneath it like a grave waiting to be filled. "If I sign," I said slowly, "what happens to him?" "He becomes unidentified," she whispered. "And what happens to me?" "You stabilize." "Which one of us?" I asked. She froze, and her silence confirmed everything I needed to know. The room felt smaller now, the ceiling lower, the air heavy with something I couldn't name, something like expectation. I felt eyes on me again. I looked back at the glass. This time, the other me was smiling, not fully, not warmly. A faint, tired, almost grateful smile, like someone watching a long-delayed event finally taking shape exactly as it was supposed to. I staggered back, hitting the metal table behind me. "He's happy," I whispered. "He understands what's coming," Harper said. Her voice broke like she had no right to speak those words aloud. "What's coming?" I demanded. Before she could answer, the lights flickered again, harder, longer. The overhead strips buzzed, dimmed to a sickly gray, and then brightened with a cold blue tint that turned the frost into a living map of veins pulsing on the glass. Something shifted in the air beside me again, close enough to raise goosebumps along my neck. The kind of closeness you feel when someone stands directly behind you. But no one stood there, not visibly. I didn't want to turn. Some instinct screamed that turning would give something permission. "Mr. Cole," Harper said gently, "listen to me. Your identity is split. The system is trying to pull it back into alignment. You're feeling that pressure because your life record is in conflict." "You mean I'm not supposed to be alive?" "I mean one version of you isn't." "And which version am I?" She didn't answer. A sharp noise broke the silence, the sound of metal tapping glass. I jerked my head back toward the viewing window. The other me's hand was pressed against the frost, fingers splayed. The frost melted beneath his palm, and the imprint glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the backward ticking clock. Then slowly, he dragged his index finger down the glass. A long, deliberate stroke. A letter formed. Not a symbol, not a shape. A letter. D. The second letter came slower. The third one trembled slightly, as if it cost him more effort. N. Dan. My name. He'd written my name on the glass. I stumbled backward, breath caught in my throat. "He shouldn't know that," I whispered. "He is you," Harper murmured. "No," I said. "I am me. That's what's being corrected." She slid the pen into my shaking hand. "Sign the file. Now." I looked down at the signature line, at my printed name, at the blank space waiting to decide which of us would be allowed to continue. Behind me, invisible steps approached. Soft, slow, deliberate. The air warmed a fraction. Not comforting warmth, body warmth, like someone standing inches from me. I felt breath on my neck, a whisper so faint it barely existed. Please. It wasn't Harper. It didn't come from the body behind the glass. It came from the space beside me, from the version of myself that did not belong in the light. A cold realization slid down my spine. There weren't two versions of me. There were three. One living, one dead, one unclaimed, and the world was waiting for one of us to be chosen. I picked up the pen. My hand moved with a calm I didn't feel. Maybe it wasn't my calm. Maybe the decision had already been made somewhere deeper, somewhere older, somewhere tied to the moment the clocks in my house froze and tried to drag me into a time that wasn't mine. I signed the line. The moment the ink hit the paper, the frost on the glass shattered outward in a flash of white. The backward clock jerked violently, spun forward, then reset to the correct time. The lights brightened. The air stilled. Harper exhaled so hard she nearly dropped her clipboard. "It's done," she said, but she didn't sound relieved. The blind lowered slowly, cutting me off from the sight of the other me. Just before it fully closed, I saw his eyes shut in a slow, peaceful finality. And then, unmistakably, the faintest curl of a smile. A smile that wasn't mine, but now belonged to the only version of me that still had permission to rest. I stepped back from the glass. The breath on my neck was gone. The unseen presence had vanished, but the world felt adjusted, settled, balanced. I wasn't sure if that meant it had chosen me or if I had unknowingly chosen it. On my way out, Harper stopped me with one trembling hand on my arm. "If anything feels wrong," she said softly, "come back immediately." "How will I know?" "You'll know." I walked out into daylight. The air felt real. The sky looked stable. Time moved in one direction. But as I reached for my phone, the lock screen blinked once. For half a second, just half, it displayed a message in gray text. Autopsy report. Status. Received. Then it cleared. 9:47 a.m. Clean. Normal. Settled. Except I knew the truth. Something had taken my place. Something had stepped back into the darkness. And something had followed me out.